This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Logan Sadler, the star of this show, the Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. As always, we're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement, doing it in the most efficient way possible. Logan, how's it going, my man?
I tell you what, Ron, I'm doing good, and as always, looking forward to a great show here, talking about some retirement education, and I think we're going to do the best we can today.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, some funny stuff and some not so funny stuff, but all that is related in one way or another to your financial life. You're listening to the show today. You want to get some good advice, you will get it from Mr. Sadler. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to arrange to have a conversation with Logan about your financial situation. 888-823-PLAN. What Logan, I think, does best, in addition to being a good guy, is does a good job of educating folks. So stand by, and I promise you will hear some pearls of wisdom before this show is out today. Logan, not only do you have this radio show, but you have podcasts for folks who have missed past shows and want to hear the whole thing. Maybe they only caught part of a show. You can go back and get those. And also some really helpful, informative videos on YouTube. How do folks get to those YouTube videos?
Yeah, so head over to YouTube, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and it will bring you right there to the channel. And like you were mentioning, Ron, we have lots of videos. We upload one a week up there for you that's basically between 3 to 5 minutes long on a bunch of different retirement planning topics that a lot of you guys have been asking about. So we just kind of, if we can't get to it here on the radio show, we'll pop it up on the YouTube channel, or even a lot of you that are commenting and liking along on certain videos. We're making more and more each week for you to check out. So again, head over there, follow along, and click subscribe.
I want to know if you saw this crazy story about what happened on a plane. There was a cargo jet headed from New York to Belgium, and it had to turn around mid-flight after a horse on board escaped its stall and was loose in the plane. The pilot had to dump 20 tons of fuel about 10 miles west of Martha's Vineyard in order to land back in New York. The horse was greeted by a vet after landing back in New York, and was ultimately just fine.
Wow.
Caused a lot of problems for the people with that car. I guess it was a cargo jet. It wasn't a passenger plane, thank goodness. My goodness. Can you imagine that?
No, I mean, I'm tight and a little bit uncomfortable on a normal plane, so I'm assuming a horse would be as well if they were on a passenger plane. But, yeah, I don't know what I would do if I saw a horse running around on a plane.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm glad they got it under control without, I hate to think they had to dump all that fuel.
Yeah, that's an expensive loss right there. Anybody that's filled up their gas tank would know how much that would hurt, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about Christmas. Christmas holidays coming up here, and there are some classic Christmas songs, and to me that's a big part of the season. Because I love music so much, and
me too.
It's wherever you're going. There is one old classic that most people never get tired of, called the 12 Days of Christmas. And I was just thinking about what the 12 Days of Christmas might be able to teach us about the power of compounding interest and financial planning in general. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great little transition there, right? Because, I mean, the 12 Days of Christmas feels like it just gets better and better as you keep singing the song, right?
Yeah.
And things build up, and that's a lot of like a 401k or like an IRA or pretty much any investment that you're adding to regularly. You see the power of compound interest. Now, I've said this on the show many times, Ron, where clients will go, what is it that that makes your most successful clients have lots of money? And it is really interesting where most of the time, not every time, but majority of the time, the answer is they put away money, right, on a consistent basis. It made a little money along the way, and that money just kept compounding and going. I always say, you see those cartoons where they would roll a snowball down the mountain, right? And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a lot like compound interest. If you let time and money and interest do its thing over a period of time, it really is amazing how it could work.
There's an old song, like a snowball rolling down the side of a snow-covered hill. It's growing.
Yep.
And that's
Exactly.
the same thing with interest compounding like that over a period of time. There's another one that, you hear all the time, and sometimes after I've heard it about 300 times during the season, I get a little bit tired of it. But
Yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. What in the world? How in the world can you relate that to financial planning?
Yeah, well, I think Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Which, again, like you said, we've heard that so many times. But I think when you look at it, it was something that was maybe he was a little bit undervalued or underutilized at first, and then ended up being the savior, right? So I think when you look at that, when you look at your financial plan or your financial world, there's a lot of assets and investment types and planning principles, I would say, that might be a little bit undervalued. And, there could be a variety of different things. But one of the first things that came to mind to me was when you look at the power of, delayed gratification, right? When you look at the people that live below their means, that put away money and really just live not a simple lifestyle. I don't mean that. But just in general, they are able to do things where they put away money consistently. They don't overspend. And it's amazing what they'll have at the end of their retirement or the end of their working years when they're able to have that little delayed gratification. So I would say living below your means and living in your means is something that a lot of us kind of can lose sight on sometimes.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we're talking about Christmas tunes here. And what does that have to do with financial planning? Well, we'll get back to that in a second here. But I wanted to tell you Logan's number one more time. If you'd like to have a conversation with Logan one-on-one, the number to call is 888-823-PLAN. That's the number for Regari Financial in Hemet and Redlands, 888-823-PLAN. Now back to the subject at hand here. We've talked about the 12 days of Christmas. What a classic that teaches us about the power of compounding. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Things that, may not seem like they're worth very much at first, but, they, changes over time. And it may be an undervalued asset, and which gets really good, something very valuable to have. Next song I wanted to ask you about is, I think, a good example of things just aren't always what they seem. Remember, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus?
Yes, I do.
How can we learn from that?
Yeah, I think that poor kid thought that mom was kissing Santa Claus there, right? So but after all, it was just dad. So I think when you look at that in the financial world, I would say maybe it's clients or prospects or people that we've met with in the past where they thought that they understood what was going on with their money or their plan, right? But when you really boil things down, their current situation or current investments maybe wasn't quite what they had, what it had seemed to be, right? We've talked about a lot of stories on here, Ron, me and you going back and forth and talking about current clients or clients or people I've met with. And it is amazing when a lot of people, when they understand or when they sit down with an advisor, they maybe feel like they understand. However, maybe they weren't told everything, or maybe they missed a few things along the way. But it is amazing with us when we sit down with people that come into our office about their current financial plan. Many people find their financial plan didn't really fit their needs overall, and maybe they didn't understand it at first, or maybe there was some other things going on. But overall, it is amazing to me that a lot of people do come in and it's not quite what it had seemed, and people are a little bit confused. So that's our job to get them back on track.
Well, I can tell you that you do a really good job of explaining these things. So I know that one of your priorities is making sure that people understand what they're invested in and how it all works, and staying on top of things for them and with them. One more song I wanted to ask you about, and I got to tell you right up front, I hate this one. I get really sick and tired of this one. Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Is there anything worthwhile in that song? Any lesson there?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's not one of my favorites by any means, but I feel like we hear it multiple times every year, right?
Yep. Once is too many.
Well, yeah, one more is one too many, right? I guess when I relate that to financial planning, I think there's a lot of times where, if people pass away, maybe early or even in general, just even later in life, it's one of those things where it does create some complexities to the financial situation.
Even if they're not run over by a reindeer.
Even if they're not ran over by a reindeer, right? Like you said, there's so many things that could happen. I always say, the financial plan, I could spend 10 or 15 hours on a good financial plan, putting in all this fun financial data, going over, cash flow analysis, tax proposals and things like that, as well as investments and long-term care plan, all this fun stuff. However, if something happened to you tomorrow, how would things change, right? And that's the biggest thing I think a lot of people do miss in their financial plan is understanding that at some point with you or your spouse passing away, you got to understand how that's going to affect the situation and make sure that you're not going to be, obviously there'll be an emotional thing to go through, but making sure financially you're going to be in a good situation. So I think understanding that full complex situation there is a very, very real thing that unfortunately some of us won't have to deal with, but the majority of us will.
Yeah, I know that there are lots of topics that we discovered, and it may be in a silly way, but it all makes sense. We can actually learn lessons from these songs if you use your imagination and focus in on what Logan is saying here. But Logan, I know it's really important. You get started with the discovery visit, and that only starts when somebody calls your office. What happens? What kind of things do you talk about the first time you meet somebody?
Yeah, the first time we meet somebody, it typically starts off with us just getting to understand a little bit about them and their family and really what they're looking to do. And it is amazing. Our process, as I always say, we're not looking to add you on as a new client. We're not looking for any commitment or anything like that in the first meeting. Really, it's just getting to understand what it is you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's amazing to me how deep sometimes some of these conversations can go to really uncover some of the deep areas that really some simple adjustments might be needed to really enhance the plan to address your concerns and your goals, right? And I feel a lot of people out there, when they meet with a financial advisor, they were sold a product or an investment, but they don't even have a real financial plan, right? When you ask them, hey, Logan, or hey, Sue, or where's your income coming from, right? They go, well, I don't really know, from my portfolio somewhere, but I don't know how. How long is it going to last? I'm not really sure. What type of tax planning are you doing? I think I'm just paying taxes, right? So I think we really do a good job of trying to understand what it is you're trying to do, and then putting together some solutions and strategies that are going to be able to implement throughout your retirement plan to make you have a more efficient retirement that's customized and built for you.
If all that sounds good to you, why not call this number, 888-823-7526, better known as 888-823-PLAN. That will get you a conversation with Logan Sadler today. All you have to do is leave a message with your name and your phone number, and you'll get a call back from the good folks at Regari first part of the week, and then you can make your dream happen. Make this conversation happen. It all starts on your way to successful retirement. And by that, I mean living the kind of lifestyle you've always wanted to live in retirement, not having to lie awake at night worried about outliving your money. That number to call one more time is 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Regari Financial, serving you wherever you are in Southern California. Logan Sadler will be right back with more in just a moment. You're listening to The Financial Beat.
Are you worried about whether you're ready for retirement? Logan Sadler and the team at Regari Financial can help. Just text the word ADVICE to 21,000 to take Regari Financial's free Retirement Roadmap Checkup. Text the word ADVICE to 21,000 and we'll send you a link to all of our free resources. From there, you can click on the button for the Retirement Roadmap Checkup. You'll just have to answer a few questions, and then you can see how prepared you are for retirement. This is a great starting point for people just starting to think about retirement. Text the word ADVICE to 21,000 to get your free Retirement Roadmap Checkup today. That's the word ADVICE to 21000.
It's getting to know you time.
You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And Logan, I got a question here for you. And this is kind of out of left field. What life lessons have you had to learn the hard way?
Oh, you know what? There's obviously too many to list there. We all have those mistakes or things we wish we would have done earlier or done different.
Right.
One of mine, I think that's kind of a cheesy one, but I really do mean it, is one thing I've had to learn the hard way is that time is not always on your side. You know, you always think you're going to be young forever, or you'll do this when you have time, or you'll go back to school, or whatever that goal you had. Yeah. Things always kind of slip away. So my thing has always been trying to just take more advantage of living in the moment and doing what instead of talking about what I'm going to do, really try to do it and accomplish it, not let time get away from me.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's ironic that we actually mentioned that earlier in today's show about time not being on your side. And
hey, it's been on my mind.
Yeah. Closer you get to retirement, the more that is the case. Time is not necessarily on your side. All the more important reason to call Logan Sadler. I'll tell you how to do that in just a few minutes. You're listening to The Financial Beat.
This is the Financial Beat.
And the beat goes on. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Regary has two convenient offices, one in Hemet and one in Redlands. And, of course, Logan Sadler has been doing this for a while, and he works with 3 different generations of client families at Regary. Many of those clients have been with the firm for more than a quarter of a century. Long time established business. Logan Sadler has established the fact that he has lots of experience in the financial world and certainly has lots of experience helping people get to and through retirement. If you'd like to tap into all that, you can call 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Everybody needs a plan, and everybody needs an individual plan. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to retirement planning. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the week, and then you can have a discovery meeting, and we'll talk more about what happens in that discovery meeting that's free and carries with it no obligation at all, coming up later on in the show. Got a quote of the week here for you. Spike Milligan said this. He said, "Money can't buy friends, but you can get a better class of enemy." And I think that's probably very true.
Yeah, it's true, right? I think sometimes, I agree. Money can't buy friends, right? It's one of those things where I've seen people, and even in my own life, right, where you've had friends that do very, very well and are very, very successful. But however, it's success and all that's not easy, but finding a really, really good friend, I feel like, is hard, right? Someone that's truly rooting for you and wanting to see you do well, and also vice versa, right? I think that true friendship is hard. However, sometimes the more successful you get, it is definitely easier and easier to find enemies, right? So I think we've seen that in every movie out there, and probably a lot in life if we've been through anything like that before or had friends go through that. I think that's definitely in line, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if you come into a lot of money and people find out about it, you're going to have a lot of friends all of a sudden, but they're not they're not really friends. They come out of the woodwork, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Logan, you know, I pride myself in having a decent sense of humor, and I know you do too, and I like to laugh about things. If I had to be serious all the time, I would just do away with me right now. I wouldn't want to be hanging around if I couldn't laugh about things. But George Bernard Shaw once said, "You don't stop laughing when you grow old. You grow old when you stop laughing." That's pretty.
I like
pretty
that one. I don't actually think I've heard that one before, but I actually really like that because I think it's kind of like the body that stays in motion, right? That they typically, or the body in motion stays in motion. I like that one because that's similar to this one, but this was with the mind, right? And I think that's physical is great, right? Staying physically in shape is awesome, but also staying mentally in shape is just as awesome, right? So I love that.
Yeah, and Tom Petty once said, to bring this up to more contemporary standards, Tom Petty once said, "I don't know, but I've been told you never slow down, never grow old."
Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Got to keep moving. Hey, we're coming up on the end of the year here. It's hard to believe that this year is almost over, but let's discuss some of the financial matters that folks ought to be considering addressing before the end of the year. Number one, consider maxing out your retirement contributions if you can. And I know this is something you talk to folks about just about every day.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at your retirement plan, like you said, Ron, I mean, one of the things about the end of the year we all should be doing around November, December is looking at our contributions, right? Whether we're adding to an IRA or 401k or any type of account we're putting money away into. Want to make sure we're putting as much as we can in there, especially when you come up on the end of the year, knowing that, well, okay, we've gotten, 10 paychecks or 11 paychecks or however many you get if you get paid weekly, but making sure that you're putting away as much as you possibly can to really enhance that long-term longevity of your retirement plan coming up. But I know a couple of the different plans out there do have till longer in the year, up till April 15th of the following year. But for the most part, you definitely want to be considering looking at your income, your savings, and then saying, you know what, can I afford to put a little bit more money away in my IRAs or 401ks or wherever it's going to make sure you're getting as close to that max or maxing out if possible.
Another thing that you really have to consider, you have no option here. If you are a certain age, you have to take your required minimum distributions. Otherwise, you're going to face a big penalty, right?
Yeah, you're right. A lot of you guys that are approaching RMD age, which is 72 for some of you or 73 for some of you, you really want to make sure that you're looking at your current situation, looking at all your accounts and working with your advisor or a professional to understand where each of those areas are going to come from to make sure you're taking those RMDs. Because the penalties are just, they're not fun, right? Nobody pays a penalty and goes, that was nice, right? So you want to make sure you're looking at the overall account types and everything like that and making sure you're taking those RMDs. And if you are taking the RMDs and you don't need the money, making sure you're looking at tax strategies and things like that could really enhance the situation, but just really making sure you're working through those RMDs. We call it December RMD season around here because it's something we definitely have a lot of clients we're doing strategies and implementing those types of fun things with.
Another good idea to think about here near the end of the year is exploring possibilities for tax loss harvesting. What is that all about?
Yeah, some of you might have heard that and go, did Ron mix up words, right? And no, tax loss harvesting is one of those types of strategies that it's not for everybody, but a lot of us that have brokerage accounts or taxable accounts, there's a very efficient tax strategy where if you have things that are maybe positions like stocks and things like that that are down, and some that are up, there might be some opportunities there to sell some and rebalance the portfolio and also offset some gains and losses there to really maybe net you a better efficient return. So looking at, like we always talk about, Ron, whenever it comes to retirement planning, I feel like taxes is always one of the most important conversations, right? And tax loss harvesting is one of those strategies that a lot of people, I would say, underutilize it or don't do it correctly. But there's a way out there for a lot of you that have massive gains out there and maybe some losses. There might be some strategies that you could do to really net you a little bit more of an efficient return.
Okay, we're talking about things that you need to consider here at the end of the year on the Financial Beat, and this is really good advice for everybody listening to the show today. Evaluate your options for tax-deductible charitable contributions, and, a lot of people take the standard deduction. Some folks don't. Things have changed over the years. Some of these things might not help if you're doing that. But Logan, take just a moment and explain that whole situation when it comes to contributions.
Yeah. So a lot of you out there, when you're looking at like charities or any type of contributions to charities or churches or anything like that, where nonprofits, stuff like that, where you really want to take a look at your overall situation. That's why I always tell people you want to make sure you have a good financial advisor and making sure you have a good tax person, because there's a lot of things people do sometimes thinking it's going to help them, and then they find out next year it didn't, right? So we don't want to give away money if we don't have to, type of thing, right? If we're doing it to charities and stuff like that, it's a great cause, but we want to make sure we're doing things that are tax efficient as well. So I think working through that with a good tax person and a financial advisor to really make sure you're orchestrating that correctly is super important, because there's a lot of tax strategies out there that are great. However, they might help some people and might not help you the same. So making sure you're really going through that in your situations is, I would say, very critical each year.
Make sure you follow up with this phone call if you're interested in this conversation we're having and you want to talk about your situation. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Gary Financial, where you will find Logan Sadler. Another thing to consider is purchases that would give you a tax credit. What might those be, Logan?
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there. I mean, right? You look at like sometimes different solar or green or energy efficient things might help you with certain things, or rebates and stuff like that there. There's, depending on if you're a business owner and things like that, there's a lot of different things you could do throughout your business and stuff like that would help you on the tax end. Personally, on your personal side, there is also some other stuff as well. But I think when you're really looking at the grand scheme there, I always tie this back into how crucial a good tax person is, right? Because so many people ask me, hey, Logan, why do I need a tax person? I can just go online and fill out on TurboTax, right? And some of you can and some of you should. But the other majority of you, you really need to go through your situation and making sure that you're getting every little penny out there in purchases or tax credits or deductions or whatever it is going for, to making sure you're getting the most money back or the most efficient tax filing possible. Because I tell you what, even as a professional in the industry that knows a lot about taxes, you want to make sure you're doing everything correctly, and things change very frequently, and you want to make sure you know all the ins and outs and making sure things are going smoothly.
There's just one more I wanted to mention here when we're talking about all these concerns at the end of the year. And this is something that we talk about a lot on this show, and some folks don't really understand how it works. But it might be a good idea in your individual situation to see if a Roth conversion makes sense for you. You can call Logan Sadler. You can have a conversation with him, and he can explain how a Roth works, what exactly it is, how it can really help you, and maybe a Roth conversion might be in line for you. Right, Logan?
Yeah, absolutely. Roth conversions are one of the strategies that we do here a lot. I always say, nothing's all good or all bad. There's definitely pros and cons to it. However, I was just working with an individual yesterday where I was running their financial plan. They're a prospect who's interviewing our firm, and we were going through our process with them. And one of the big things he said, Logan, I'm always worried about taxes. I got taxes this year, taxes next year, right? I feel like for the rest of my life, I'm going to have these huge tax concerns. And this client had a large amount. They had over $5 million of investable assets and 401ks and brokerage accounts and things like that. By just implementing, not even including some of the other tax strategies we're going to be able to do with this individual, but when you look at just implementing Roth conversions in his situation, if everything plays out according to the plan, he's going to save over $100,000 in his lifetime on taxes. Right. So it's like just by doing those Roth conversions, and there's strategy to it. You don't do it all in 1 year. Sometimes you do it over multiple years. Depending on your tax bracket, they may or may not be good for you. But I think when you really look at how important it can be for some of us out there, it's definitely worth the conversation with your advisor to see if that's a strategy that you can implement right and correctly. And that's one thing here at our firm. I always say, Ron, that we talk about it on the show all the time, but I think it's one of those things that definitely separates our firm, where when you come in for our discovery meeting, you're not just sitting down and I'm going to go, here's 3 or 4 mutual funds or stocks or whatever and have a good day, right? A lot of our clients are coming in here, they have $200,000, $1 million, $5 million, whatever the amount is, and they're looking for strategies to help improve their retirement plan. Now, that a lot of the times will include, yes, good investments, good investment management, but also looking at insurance, looking at taxes, looking at estate planning, all these other things that might really make a huge impact to the overall plan. And that's one thing we feel our firm does really well, and it helps a lot of our clients that come on board with our firm help transition to and through retirement.
You want to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about your situation? What if I told you that it won't cost you anything at all, and there's no obligation involved? In other words, no strings attached. That's all true. Get a discovery visit with Logan Sadler at Regari Financial by calling 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is the number to call. Leave your name and your phone number. You will get a call back first part of the week, and then you can have a conversation with Logan. Again, absolutely free and obligation-free. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call to talk about all these concepts we talk about on the show. If you have questions about a Roth conversion, or things you might purchase that give you a tax credit, any of the things that we just talked about, RMDs, etc., it's all with Logan Sadler. But you have to reach out with a phone call to make it happen. 888-823-PLAN. This is the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more on the other side of this timeout.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is the Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is on the radio. Go tell everybody you know. And this radio show is not the only way you can get the wit and wisdom of Logan Sadler every week on a regular basis, but you can also check him out on YouTube, and there are podcasts that are available in case you don't have a chance to listen to the show when it's on, or if you want to go back and check some past shows that we've done, and there are quite a few of those. Right, Logan?
Yeah, you can head over to the podcast platform or the YouTube platform and catch some of those old shows on there, and they're uploaded there weekly. And like you said, Ron, there is quite a bit of them now for you to head over there and check out. As well as the YouTube channel, like I mentioned, we do a video there each week as well, plus the podcast. So there's actually 2 uploads per week to the YouTube channel. And again, the YouTube videos are just a little bit shorter. They're anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes long. And a lot of them are just short clips on maybe some strategies or some topics, or even maybe some rule changes and things like that a lot of you might have questions on to help maybe improve your situation or give you a little bit more insight on one particular topic.
A lot of good information there available from Logan Sadler. Again, it's absolutely free. And speaking of free, if you want to get a discovery visit going, all you got to do is call 888-823-PLAN. Call that number right now during the show while you're thinking about it. 888-823-PLAN. Leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back, and then you can set a time for your get-together with Logan. Again, 888-823-PLAN. Gosh, we talk about so many interesting topics on this show, and let's move on to another one here. It's called the retirement pyramid. Logan, if a solid retirement plan is built like a pyramid, what are the different levels that make up that pyramid? Explain that to me and everybody else, if you would.
Yeah, this pyramid approach, we use a lot like the physical house, we call it here, and the pyramid as well. And those are one of the two biggest, I'd say, indicators of a retirement plan. They could be used for, they could be used more for an income proposal or an investment proposal or an overall retirement plan. For today's purpose, let's talk about three of it, right? Let's say there's three levels to the pyramid, and typically let's talk about specifically about the income pyramid, right? The income plan. So when you look at that, I would say there's three main levels, right? You have the bottom of it, which is the base and the foundation, right? That's the one layer you don't, it's like concrete, right? It's probably a little bit more stronger than the others. Then you have the middle of the pyramid, and then you have the top of the pyramid. And each of those can be a little bit different and have different integrations to the income plan. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that here in just a second.
Yeah. Now, let's break down each of those levels, if you would. Starting with the base or the foundation. Everybody knows that you need a good foundation if you're building a house or anything else. Tell us more about that particular level.
Yeah, when I look at the base of it, like you said, I think of concrete, right? Something that's solid. And when I think about that, I want to understand something I want to make sure it's something that is extremely conservative or consistent, right? And when we're talking about income, I need something that's coming in every month, right? So, or every week or however it's coming in. So what I label in the income side there is, I would say, as far as the foundation, is there's really only three things that typically would fit in there. You have pension, right? So that's your monthly pension coming in. You have maybe Social Security that's coming in. And you have any annuities or insurance products that might have a guaranteed income on them, right? So those three things, when you look at those come in every single month, no matter what the market's doing today, tomorrow, the next day. You know that you're going to have a paycheck that's going to last the rest of your lifetime, and if done correctly, the rest of your spouse's lifetime, right? So I think it's really important to understand how crucial the foundation is. And as you guys could probably imagine, if you're drawing a pyramid while you're driving right now or sitting on your porch, the bottom of the foundation of the pyramid, right, the foundation part should be the biggest, right? So when you look at a retirement income plan and you want $100,000 a year, you typically don't want to have $100,000 a year just depending on investments, right? Just depending on, hopefully the market does well, hopefully my bonds perform, hopefully CD rates don't go down, right? You don't want to have to look at anything like that. That should be, if you want $100,000 a year, you're probably going to want 50, 60, 70,000 of that a year guaranteed, right? Or coming in from that foundation section.
Yeah. For sure. Now, I know you talk to a lot of new people all the time, and of course you have current clients you've known for a long time, but do you find that most people at least have their base or their foundation in place already? And if they don't, what are they missing?
Yeah, you know what? It kind of varies, Ron. Like you said, meeting with certain people, some people understand that concept and some don't, right? I was meeting with a client the other day. They wanted about $200,000 a year of income. They had a lot of assets. They had over $1 million. And in their situation, they had enough money to make this all work. However, so much of it was just dependent on what their investments did that day. And I'm one of those people. I am not very, I'm not a glass half empty type person. I think the markets will do well over a period of time. I think investments do perform over a period of time. However, I know they're extremely volatile, right? So in this particular example, this person was having way too much of their income, pretty much all of it, depending on just the market and just Social Security, right? So of that $200,000, they only had about $60,000 that was going to be from that foundation section. So we had to put together some other strategies and solutions to make sure that we were getting a little bit more guaranteed income. And then again, utilizing the other stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all the other stuff that can be a great complement to an income plan.
Now, let me ask you this. We talked about all these different levels of the house, starting with the foundation. That's the main thing that we've talked about here. But what are the other levels, the other things when you're building a house or a financial future? what are the other levels, and how do you take care of those and make sure they're correct?
Yeah, the other level I would call the middle one, which would be like the walls, right? That's the way I describe it, the walls of the pyramid. When you look at that, that's the middle section. For us, that's a lot of different, that's your market funds, right? For a lot of us, that's going to be maybe bonds, mutual funds, CDs, or real estate, a lot of those different types of investments that might be a little bit more aggressive than some other things. But there's also structured notes, a lot of different investments in there that could be different risk classes. But again, those might produce income or they might produce growth, but those typically have what I would say not guaranteed, right? So one thing I always say is I love dividend stocks, I love bonds, I love CDs, love mutual funds, ETFs, all that stuff can be great. However, pretty much any of those things I mentioned, they don't have the word guaranteed with it, right? So that's why they would fall in that middle section, which would be the alternative section of the walls. That again is very, very important and probably just as important as the other sections. However, it should typically not be the biggest portion of the income plan.
Yeah, a lot of things to think about, a lot of people to talk about these things with you. A lot of people should be calling your number, but what about you've talked about the foundation and the middle section and everything, but what about the roof? How can you describe all that?
Yeah, the roof, I would say, is one of those things that's probably a lot more higher risk investments, maybe individual stocks or things that you're not planning on getting a whole lot of income from, right? Maybe you're more growth-oriented investments where you're saying, you know what, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, it's not going to ruin my retirement plan, right? You probably have the smallest portion of your income coming in from that, and maybe none at all. But that's where I would say you want more of your higher risk investments. And that's why it's funny when a lot of clients come in, they always go, should I be aggressive? Should I be conservative? Well, a lot of the times there's room for different levels of risk in a retirement plan, right? Overall, you might be more moderate or conservative or whatever it is, but you still want more high risk investments in there somewhere. It just might not be, 100% of the investments, right? So I think it's important to understand those three levels, like you said, Ron, can really just have a very positive effect on the overall income plan if done correctly. And the thing I find a lot of the time is most of the time people have too much in one of these areas, and most of the time it's not in the foundation. And so a lot of the times you have a very unpredictable income plan. And what is the thing that most of us have been used to for our whole working years was having a paycheck every week or every month, right? And so the biggest thing I think that scares a lot of people or makes them panic and do bad investment decisions during market volatility is not having an income plan that maybe is shaped like a pyramid or a house to have those different levels of income coming in. Some that might be guaranteed, some that might fluctuate a little bit, and some that might fluctuate a lot depending on how aggressive you get.
888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN. He does a lot of talking on this show, but really when you get together with him for a discovery visit, you're going to do most of the talking because Logan is really good at listening. And the reason for that is he needs to know what your hopes and dreams are, what you're trying to accomplish, what kind of lifestyle you want in your retirement planning. And everybody's situation is different. You're not the same as your next door neighbor or your cousin or your brother-in-law or your coworker. Everybody's situation is completely different from everyone else. You are unique. I'm unique. 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. He works with 3 different generations of client families, and many of those clients have been here for a long time with Bregary Financial. And also at Bregary, you need to remember that they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, and Medicare specialists to offer you well-rounded guidance in everything having to do with your financial life. It's sort of a one-stop shop. And if Logan doesn't know the answer to a question you ask him, he'll say, I don't know, and then he'll find out for you. That's the way it works at Bregary Financial. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call right now. Why procrastinate? Call right now, leave your name and number. You'll get a call back, and you can set a time for your own discovery visit. It's free and obligation-free. There's more coming up with the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is here, and we'll be right back.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
Do you know the fellow's name?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
If your head is spinning from confusing financial terms and data, clear up the confusion right here on the Financial Beat.
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat, and the beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler the Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial, is here with me on the radio show. And wherever you are in Southern California, thank you so much for listening. Remember that Regary Financial has 2 convenient locations, one in Hemet, one in Redlands. You can come in, have a visit that way, or you can have a visit via Zoom. All you got to do to arrange it, a discovery visit is what we call it, that first time you get together with Logan, 888-823-PLAN. Talk to Logan. There's no obligation to do anything beyond that. You'll get a lot of good advice and good information. But the number to call again is 888-823-PLAN. It's cost-free, obligation-free. Let's go to the mailbag here. We have some great questions. And the first one is from Marley in Anza. And Marley says, my husband and I are considering retirement around age 55. How does it change the calculations about how much we need to have saved if we're retiring 10 years earlier than most people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've had many people that come into our office that do retire at 50, 55. Not everybody, but I do have quite a few. And one of the things I would say is the biggest calculation is you got to look at a few things. One is, depending on your situation, you're probably a long ways out from getting any type of health coverage, right? So Medicare is 65. So if you're at 55, that has 10 years where we'll have to cover expenses possibly for health care. So that's a huge cost up front. So we got to understand that might run quite a bit of money per month, between, I'm not an expert in that Medicare insurance quoting, or not Medicare, sorry, insurance quotes, but I'm just going to say, let's say $1,000 plus a month, depending on your health care and all that stuff you need. So that's a big calculation. The other big thing is Social Security. A lot of us plan on using Social Security as an income stream. If we retire at 62, 65, 67, whatever it is, that is usable, right? Because you could touch Social Security at 62. So again, that's another thing that puts Social Security or another income stream pretty far away. The other thing is a majority of people, depending on your retirement savings, it might be in investments that you can't touch till 59 and a half, right? So some of us that have IRAs or different 401ks or some of those investments, there might be hard to access some of those investments unless you have 457s or other types of retirement accounts that might let you touch those early, or just traditional brokerage accounts and things like that. So there's a lot of those I'd say those are the 3 common intricate parts where we really got to figure out how to structure it and see if that is possible at 55. Then the big thing after that is, do we have enough money, right? Because now we're retiring earlier, which means we need our money to last longer, right? If we were planning on retiring at 65 to 85, that's 20 years, but now we're retiring an extra, 10 years earlier, right? So that now is a 30-year plus retirement, not including if we live longer than that. So I think there's those 4 intricate parts you really want to look through, and I highly recommend before pulling the plug, or even while you're in the planning stages now, reaching out to us or working with an advisor to really make sure you're going through all the complexities that might come to fruition with that. I'm not saying it's not possible, because again, I've had a lot of clients do it, but we want to make sure we're covering all the X's and O's and making sure things are as carefully structured and really, really looked at and analyzed to make sure you're doing the right thing now and for the rest of your retirement.
Marley, if you want to have a follow-up conversation about all this, call Logan's office, 888-823-PLAN. Again, that's a really great question, as Logan said, 888-823-PLAN. Chris says, what's an appropriate fee to pay for investment management? If I just want to let my money ride in the market for several years, how much difference does a manager make?
Yeah, that's a great point. This is a very, I would say, delicate question for most people, right? But it really would depend kind of on, we kind of mentioned it there, like you were looking more for like a passive investment style, which typically comes a little bit cheaper. However, I do recommend having some management on it, right? And I would say that whether you went with our firm or another firm, right? I would always tell clients the same thing, where if you look at the investments, a lot of people say, buy the S&P 500 and it should do X amount of return over X amount of years, right? Or the Dow or the NASDAQ or whatever it is you're looking for. That is true, where they have had pretty decent rate of returns when you look over a period of time. However, I do think you do gain benefit by having a manager on there, because there are certain times where different segments of those indexes and things like that might be performing better.
And you typically get benefit by having a manager, right? And I always tell people, typically by paying something, you should be gaining a value in return, right? A lot of people don't mind paying a fee or paying for a service or whatever it is if you're getting some type of value in return. And typically, some clients might think it might be better returns or whatever, which in some cases that could happen. But it's also about having that advisor to help coach you and guide you throughout that experience is typically where a lot of the value should be added as well. Now, what you should pay for typical just money management, you'll typically see fees if you go to any of the big brokerage firms or individual advisors, you'll see them anywhere from 1 to about 2%, right? Which 2% would be on the very high side. But typically between 1 to 2%, as well as it depends on how much money you have, right? A lot of advisors will have a break point where they will lower a fee. And you could also go the robo-advisor route, which they'll pay, 0.5 to 0.75 typically. I will say more often than not, I recommend clients using the investment manager rather than the robo, because again, you get a little bit more customized approaches to your investment plan, and you have somebody to help kind of bounce those ideas off of, and any type of concerns you might have, you actually have somebody to talk to help make sure you're making those right decisions. But as well as just investment management, you also want to make sure you're looking at a financial planner, right? A lot of advisors will advertise investments, which, yes, that's very important, and that's part of what we do. But also you want to make sure you have a financial planner to make sure, do we need to be contributing more money? Are we on track? Should we be doing a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA? How's your 401k doing, right? All these other things that might be coming up that you're going to need extra guidance on. You want to make sure they're doing that as well. And that's typically where a good advisor could really set themselves apart from just a traditional broker or just a traditional investment manager.
There's so much to it and so much to know, and Logan Sadler does this stuff all the time. And, you may be one of these people who, you try and do it all yourself, but my goodness, why not lean on the experience and the know-how of someone like Logan Sadler? Another question here from Ernie, and Ernie is in Palm Springs. Ernie says, my daughter just had twins, and we're blown away by the cost of daycare that they're facing for 2 babies. My wife is thinking about retiring a year earlier than planned to take care of the grandchildren instead of letting them pay more than $2,000 a month for childcare. Could I just work a year longer than we had planned to accommodate this, or is it more complicated than that? And first of all, Logan, you know what it means to be a recent parent and everything. Can you imagine that if you had 2 instead of 1?
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of got on my train of thought there. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, it's just so expensive out there for any of the parents out there that have younger kids. Just because wages and everything has gone up. I mean, a lot of the cost of care is very expensive, Ernie. So I feel your pain on that one. One thing I would say is it's something to look at. I have actually had a couple clients that have done something similar to this. And again, what I would say is it always depends on your situation. We got to analyze how much money are we leaving on the table by, you working longer or your wife retiring early. What does the Social Security look like? Pensions? What is the 401k or 457? How much contributions are we putting in there? What does that look like? And how does that really impact things? And again, looking at that from a broad scope of how does it affect the overall plan? And I had a couple clients, actually had 2 this year, where it was like, hey, I get it. Based off your current scenario, it's really not even going to hurt you that bad. It really wouldn't make a difference if you're ready to go. You're in a good situation, you could do it. And I've had a couple clients where it's like, man, it could potentially affect, pension payouts or Social Security. We're 1 year away from the max or whatever it is. So there's a lot of deeper questions inside that we'd have to kind of break apart. But those are some of the things that I'd be looking at as if I was your advisor or if I'm you thinking about this to kind of get that covered before pulling the trigger. I always say it's better to understand that beforehand, but it definitely might be something that might be in the realm of possibility if done correctly and everything's looked at.
Got another question here from Catherine in Woodcrest, and it's kind of an interesting question because she doesn't give us a whole lot of details here. She says, I have a room full of various collectibles that I think are probably worth quite a bit of money. How should I factor this into my retirement plans? I have regular retirement savings too. I'm not banking my entire future on this stuff, but it has to be worth something. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, something is only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So you don't have any idea how much this stuff is worth.
Exactly. I hate to say it, but sometimes, right, we might have a baseball card or a watch or a piece of jewelry or something that is worth $1 million to us, but worth $100 to somebody else, right? And so one of the things I always tell people is whatever type of collectible it is, you typically can get those, appraised and things like that, depending on what it is, to kind of get an idea of what type of value those are worth. But as you had mentioned, Ron, even though if it's worth X amount, you still have to find a buyer for it, someone that's willing to exchange money for goods, right? So I would say, first off, I'd probably say good for you by also having retirement accounts and things like that, which is awesome. But I'd also look and see if you can get those appraised and see kind of what type of value that would look like, as well as how easy are those to sell and exchange for money when the time comes.
Yeah, exactly. Catherine, the number to call if you'd like to have a longer conversation with Logan about all this, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. Another question here from Frank in French Valley. And Frank says, my son is very smart, but most people would probably consider him a bit eccentric. He just turned 40 and hasn't had a real career in many years, but he gets by on gigs like driving for Uber and things like that. Yep. I don't foresee him ever saving anything for retirement himself. So what's the best way for me to make sure that he's financially taken care of after I'm gone?
Yeah, Frank, that's man. We've had really good questions here, and we always have good questions, but these ones are a little bit different than normal. So,
yeah.
I would say you're not alone there, right? There's a lot of people out there with their kids. Maybe you're doing more passion-driven things or doing different things than other generations might have previously done. And like you said, I mean, if you think your son's in a situation where he's not saving much money or not really focused on the financial gain of things like that. If you feel it's your responsibility, you could, start putting away money for him or setting up things correctly. And one of the biggest things I'd probably recommend, and if you came into the office, I'd recommend you to go sit with one of our estate planning attorneys to look at the trust setup, right? Because the estate plan is going to be huge. If you have a son, depending on how much you have, I mean, if you have $500,000 or $10 million or whatever the amount is, I mean, it's one of those things where you would not probably want to hand all that money to them in one sitting, right? So you want to make sure if something did happen to you, that you have things set up through your trust and your will and things like that to make sure things are orchestrated correctly, and making sure that somebody that never has handled money is now in a position where they're not having to handle money. But like I said, it's one of those situations where if you feel it is your obligation, there is some things we could do. However, you're not, you probably provided him a good life, so you're not required to have to save for his retirement. But if it is something you felt like you need to do, there's definitely clients we've worked with by helping set up some structures to make that come to life there.
Hey, Frank, again, that number, 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today, Regary Financial, and arrange to have a discovery visit with Logan Sadler. One more question today. Great question so far. Herman is in Moreno Valley, and Herman says, I'll be retiring just a few months after my 65th birthday, but my full retirement age isn't until 66 and 8 months. Should I wait until then to start my Social Security?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I've done a lot of videos on this, and if you could, I'd recommend go over to the YouTube channel and check out some of our videos on Social Security, because I've done some different numbers to show you, the advantages to waiting or not waiting, and really kind of calculating some of that math. Some of it I probably can't do here on the show just because I don't have a visualized illustration to do it. I might confuse you and myself talking through it, but I think there's a lot of advantages to waiting to Social Security. But a couple of the few considerations would be, what is the rest of your retirement plan look like? Do you have other savings, other investments to supplement it? If not, it might be worth waiting a little bit longer. And even if so, depending on income and other sources of income, you might want to understand the taxes as far as going before full retirement age. So definitely give me a call. I'd love to run through your situation and really kind of make sure now is the right time or waiting is the right time, and really go through it on an individual basis, because it's amazing how many times I've had these conversations and it's always a little bit of a different answer.
Herman, I would just say make sure you have this right, because it can cost you a lot of money if you don't. And follow up with a conversation with Logan Sadler about this, and he can go through all the ramifications of that whole situation. Logan, we have reached the end of another show. My goodness, another one in the can almost. Man. And I know a lot of people have appreciated some of the things you've said, but are there any final thoughts you'd like to pass along to folks today as we come up near the end of the year?
Yeah, a lot of you guys out there, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world today, right? A lot of changes coming. And a lot of you out there are really maybe concerned with the overall state of your retirement plan or your investments or whatever it might be. And I definitely think I've met with a lot of you recently that have came in and expressed some of those concerns. And we've been able to help a lot of you get back on track financially. And a lot of you guys aren't struggling by getting on track, but really it's more just rounding out some of the concerns and some of the goals and setting goals for your upcoming or current retirement plan. And again, that is our specialty. We help a lot of people that are approaching retirement or near retirement or maybe just started that are really looking to get a full comprehensive plan together to have those 5 pillars of their retirement plan covered and making sure that they have a team and a group to help work through that, not only for the next year or two, but throughout their retirement. So I definitely recommend giving us a call. And you're doing the right thing so far by listening to the show. Hopefully we gave you some good information and some information nuggets there to take with you, but definitely would love to have some of you guys come in and go through our process. Maybe it's via Zoom or via phone, and we could touch base and provide some more value and some additional value to your situation.
Here's a very important phone number for you, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Brigari Financial, serving you wherever you are in Southern California. A couple of convenient offices, one in Redlands, one in Hammett, and of course, when you do have that conversation, that discovery visit, it will be with Logan Sadler, the same person you hear on this show every single week, the same person you see in the YouTube videos and the podcast. You hear him there, 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember it is by using a word that we all need to have in our future, and that is a plan, 888-823-PLAN. Logan, I have enjoyed being with you today, as always, and I know you've reached a lot of folks out there, and here we are coming up on the end of the year. It's a busy time, so I hope a lot of folks will reach out.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I always enjoy the show as well, and thank you to each and every one of you listeners who stop by here each week, or maybe it's your first show stopping by, and we appreciate you hanging out with us for an hour, and we'll be back again next week.
Regari Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.